When I started my first real businesses at 18, I made so many mistakes along the way. And still to this day, I am making mistakes every day that I learn from and grow from and adapt from. But there are so many things that I wish I avoided at the start. And if I had somebody to point me in the right direction, they're very easy things that you do not learn too much from. It's just things you don't know until you do it. And these things are going to make you grow so much faster. So the 7 things that we're going to be going over in this video are things that I really, really wish I knew at the start, because it's not necessarily learning experiences. It's more so things that you could have skipped and you would have improved a lot faster. Things that you might be scared to do that you should know are going to help you improve faster than everybody else in the game. And they say a smart person learns from their own mistakes, but a smarter person learns from somebody else's. So come with me and learn from my mistakes. And if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Carter Positan. I'm a 21-year-old entrepreneur who has scaled multiple businesses to over 6 figures within less than 3 years. I run multiple businesses in different spaces, from retail to online digital marketing to my largest one, which is my construction company. And although I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, I strive to be a person in the space that could have led the 18-year-old version of myself, that lost kid with no direction, with no mentor, because I know how deeply I needed someone like this in my life at that time. And even if I can just help one person, that's amazing, because I know how desperately I needed that person at that age. And at any age, to be honest, anybody can use direction. But specifically, I really want to be able to help people that are starting out in stuff like this, because I needed that so badly. And I like to look at myself as a person that I would have needed last year, last month, yesterday. I want to be a better version of myself every day. So even if I'm only one step ahead of you in business, or even behind you in business, I think everybody can learn from other people. And I hope that you do gain something from my YouTube videos. And without further ado, here are 7 things I wish I knew as an 18-year-old before starting my first business. Number 1, and one of the biggest ones, is not going all in sooner. And as counterintuitive as this sounds to most people, I would say one of the biggest mistakes I made as an 18-year-old was not going all in from the start. I feel like for a very, very large portion of my life, I kind of half-assed everything, like most teenagers and kids do. I didn't want to put all my eggs into one basket or all of my income into one goal, but I realize now going all into one thing opposed to hedging your bets in all these different locations is not the way to go, especially not as an 18-year-old. The thing is as an 18-year-old, as somebody in your early 20s, you don't have anything to lose. You are in a position where you could fuck up every single thing for 4 years straight, and you are still going to come out as a 22-year-old on the other end, 20 steps ahead of every single person coming out of school. Because if you're living with your parents or have cheap rent and you're still working a day job, you have the ability to put everything into a new endeavor. You have literally nothing to lose. Nothing to lose at all. So if you go all in, you're not going to come out on the other side worse off. You're going to come off so much better from learning from mistakes. You can start a new business every single day for 4 years straight. If you opened up a business, and it doesn't need to be something that you want to do for the rest of your life, but if you opened up a business at 18 years old, and for the next 4 years straight, next 1,500, 1,600 days, whatever it is, every single day of your life work towards that business and put all your time and energy into that, even if the business fails completely, you make not a dollar, you are going to come out on the other side of that after that 4 years as the most knowledgeable individual in your circle, in your peer group coming out of school, because you can go to business school and you can go and do 4 years of that. But I can promise you the experience you're going to learn from actually going and doing these things is going to bring you out on the other side with actually having real world experience and having real failures in that moment, in that time. The learning and the tools that you're going to pull away from that, nobody else is going to have unless they've done what you've done. And as a 20-year-old, anywhere in your 20s, unless you have a kid or bills to pay or something along those lines, you truly have nothing to lose. There is nothing holding you back from putting your all into a business. So if you have the opportunity, do not avoid going all in. Take every step, every procedure you need, and go all in as soon as possible. Number two, this one may only apply if you're trying to start an online business or something along those lines, but I think it works in a lot of ways, whether that's a construction company, a clothing business, a Shopify store. It really doesn't matter, because the second mistake I'm going to talk about is starting a website too early. Now, don't get me wrong, websites can be amazing tools when trying to get into SEO, when you're trying to market, when you're trying to look professional. It's amazing. It's awesome. But the thing is if you're selling something online or if you're marketing online, there's a very high likelihood that you are paying very high monthly fees for a website. And I'll give an example that when I was running my first vintage clothing business, I started a website straight out of the gate. Originally, when I was 17 in high school, I remember doing it. And I think my first shop was on Wix. And then eventually I changed to Shopify, but I was paying insane fees because of what my vintage clothing business was. So I think per year it was roughly $800 Canadian per year. It's about 600 US or give or take, but per year. And my first year, I didn't commit to what I was doing in high school. So I ended up just losing all the money that I paid for that website for the first year. And then year two, I didn't have any sense of marketing. So when I was 18 and I really went all in on that vintage clothing business, I didn't have any marketing experience. I didn't have any SEO experience. I didn't have any promotion experience. And I didn't even have money to do ads in the first place. So all the money that was going into my website was just leaving the other end. And once you scale to a certain point, yeah, it doesn't matter. But the reason I say specifically when you're starting out is because it is so unnecessary. Once again, if you are selling vintage clothing, just for this example, you can go on Grail, you can go on Depop, you can go on eBay, you can go on Facebook Marketplace, you go on Etsy, and they market your stuff for you because they get paid based off your sales. So if you just want to test a theory, if you want to test a business out, there is no point in starting your own website and paying all these fees when you might not have anything in the first place. So avoid that for the start. Once again, even with my construction business, at this point, I still don't have a website. And I generate over $500,000 in revenue per season, which is typically 4 to 5 months. I don't have a website because I reached out to people directly. And at some point, yeah, I should probably get a website so people can reach out to me, but I've still booked up regardless. I've never had a website. So I just think it's one of those things where now, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to freak out by losing $1,000 on the website. But if you're not getting leads to the website directly, what is the point? If you want to do some sort of drop shipping and you want to open up your own Shopify, you're still going to be paying roughly $40 a month to have that website and pay for your domain and all these things. Why not just sell on Etsy? It's $20 and you have a store for the rest of your life. Why would you not just sell on Etsy? And I understand seller fees and all these things, of course, but if you don't have proof that the product works in the first place, why would you be paying extra money out of pocket to run this website? And even if we're talking about a physical business, most people, when they look up a business, are looking at reviews, they're looking how many people touched it. So nobody really trusts websites these days. And you're much better off to grow something like an Instagram page where people can look and see the engagement and see real people connecting with you. Open a Facebook. Once again, it's free. I'm not saying don't ever open a website. I'm just saying that in the start, when you don't have proof that your concept works, when you're not generating revenue, when you're not generating a full income for yourself, why waste the money on a website? Why put the time into a website when eventually it'll be very useful? But at this point, it is unnecessary. Number 3, one of the biggest mistakes I made when starting my business, and I do not say this lightly, I think this is one of the most important ones, is not going legit from the start with taxes. And I probably shouldn't be admitting this on the internet, but as an 18-year-old, I had no idea what I was doing with business. And all I knew was I don't want to pay more taxes. So what do? You put a lot of sales under the table. Anything you can avoid paying taxes on, you would put it on the table. What I didn't understand at that time when I was 18 was how much of a benefit you get from being a legit business in at least North America. I don't know as much. I can't say as much for Europe and all these other places, but it a lot of the concepts work the same way. Is if you are a legit business, yes, of course you pay taxes, but there are specific loopholes that the government puts out so small businesses pay less in taxes, specifically for the fact that they generate revenue for the economy. They need money to generate through the economy. So when I look at something, and this might be a little bit confusing, it's not too much that you need to know right this second, but you get a rebate on the amount of taxes paid out to you. So if your business expenses are higher than what you collected in taxes, then you're keeping the HST that you're collecting from customers. Now that's a little bit more of a complicated system, but what that means in short is I'm keeping HST and I'm never paying it out to the government if I've spent enough with my businesses. So the thing about the write-offs is with when you're legit, when you're off the books, of course, yeah, you might save taxes, but if you're making $30,000 a year when you're starting out, what do those taxes really do? You get what I'm saying? But the benefit to it is now if you were to claim that those taxes happen, that those sales happen, you show that to the government. Well, I run my business out of my house. If back in the day my rent was $2,500 a month, I had a home office, I had storage in there, and I used half of my apartment as a photo studio for my vintage clothing. All of a sudden, oh, I can write off 40% of my rent as a business expense. I could write off my parking spot because my car is used for business purposes. I can write off the gas that I use. I can write off a lot of dinners that I brought out clients to or people I was working with. People that I was working with. You get to write off your hydro, your water, anything that goes along with that. I've written off every single piece of clothing I've ever bought because all it takes is taking one picture in it. And oh, well, it was for the vintage clothing store. It was for marketing, which is true 90% of the time because I used to do the modeling for all of my vintage clothing. So sometimes I would need to buy a new pair of shoes to do outfits or some sort of thing for advertising. It's a write-off. Any piece of clothing I've paid for since I was 18 years old has been a write-off now. But I was so scared of that at the start because you don't understand the tax systems. But do not be scared of it. Learn it, understand it, and you are going to expand so much quicker because all of a sudden, if you make $100,000 in most, it depends on the state you're in, depends where you are, what country. But in Canada, if you make over $100,000, you are paying very high amounts in income tax. You might pay $30,000, $40,000 in income tax depending on what's happening. And as a small business, a lot of the time you end up paying more because the HST is coming out of your pocket once again. So the thing is if you go legit, a lot of the time you end up paying pretty much nothing. In fact, you'll sometimes get a fat return. I mean, last year I think I got a $15,000 return because I overpaid in taxes and all my write-offs ended up being more than what I paid out. So that is the type of thing that is very strongly going to affect how these things work out. And if you can save more money, you can invest more money into your business. So write-offs, people always act like the rich are skipping out on something, they're cheating. But the system allows these loopholes. If the loopholes were harming the economy, people would take them out. But the thing is, they don't harm the economy. Small businesses and LLCs and companies are what generate the economy. Countries need this. The economy needs small businesses to run, which is why they allow these loopholes, is because they do not generate enough without us doing this. So it's not cheating. They're there for a reason. If you go legit, you will make more money and you have more tools in your arsenal to use. Go legit. Number 4, choosing the wrong type of business. Now, everybody can learn anything. I am a firm believer of the 10,000 hour method, for instance, that 10,000 hours can make you a master in anything. I love that, and that is a very comforting thing to me because it's true. If you want to put the time in, you can learn anything. But intrinsically, people are different people. We're all built different ways, and people's strong suits, whether they like it or not, are better and worse at some things. So when I talk about choosing the wrong type of business, this can mean a million things. It might mean that you might be better at something physical. You might be better at something on the computer. You might be something better at numbers, inventory. It doesn't matter, right? But what you need to understand is that You need to figure out when you're starting your first business what it is that you want from this business. Do you want a life in this city? Do you want to live in this country? Do you want to be remote? Do you want to build an empire? Do you want to buy properties? Right? Because you have to understand, if you want to open a construction business, well, you need a lot for your equipment eventually, right? Where do you keep all this stuff? If you are living out in a big city like I am, it is not the easiest to just throw your stuff in the garage like it was when you were living at home. You can't just throw stuff in the backyard. You can't just throw stuff in the basement. You don't have storage, right? Another thing is the vintage clothing. I was running out of my apartment for a very long time, but eventually you outgrow that, and now you need a space for marketing. You need a space for videography. You need a place for inventory. I do really wish when I started out that I worked along the lines originally with something less physical and more online. Now, everybody says that, and the thing is online businesses are genuinely harder than they seem in a lot of ways because anybody can do it for sure, but it takes a lot more dedication than I think people presume to make more money. Because the thing is it is a lot easier to sell a physical product to somebody than something online. You might be able to scale a lot quicker online, but it's very hard for the numbers scaling to catch up to the amount you'll be making in a physical business like something like construction, right? So, in order to start an online business, you need to provide value in one way or another, unless you're drop shipping. I don't know. We're not going to talk about that right now, but unless you're drop shipping, you're providing value. So, you might be doing online coaching, you might be doing course selling, you might be doing digital advertising. It doesn't matter, right? But that online business is providing value in one way or another. And in order to provide value, you need to have an understanding of what you're providing. And not everybody has a skill set that they can provide. So when you look at something like the vintage clothing business, that was very easy for me to start. And it's very easy for anybody to start because you just need to go out and get the items and somebody will like them. Somebody will buy them if they look good. Obviously, of course, they need to be in some sort of style that somebody wants to buy, but that is the value in itself. You are not inherently providing value yourself. The items that you're selling are. So physical businesses are a lot easier to get up off the ground, but you lack the freedom that an online business provides. So when you're starting your first business, it's very important that you understand the pros and cons to each one and what direction you want to be in. Because at this point in my life, I'm an avid traveler. I love moving around. I don't love Canada. And I've been trying to move my businesses and my business models to different countries for a while. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. And I've been trying to move forever. And it's very difficult. But I spend about 7 months of the year abroad traveling. I still do some work online. I have some things working on at home when I'm not there, but 95% of my income is related to physical in the sense that I can work a lot on my computer and do vintage clothing while I'm gone, but somebody still needs to be at the warehouse shipping orders if I'm not there. So it's something to think about because once again, it's easier. And if you have no problem with the place you live, amazing. Start your business there and do physical. I recommend physical. But for me, when I started out, I didn't think I would travel as much as I have. I've done 30 countries in 3 years. And it really kills me being stuck in a place like Canada, for instance, in part of the year because it's such a depressing place to be. It's cold, it's gloomy, it's snowy. I don't agree with a lot of the political views. That's beyond the point. But I mean, it's just not a place that I want to be. And I now lack the ability to leave permanently because it's a physical business. Now, I'm still very blessed to be able to leave for 7 months of the year, sometimes even more. But once again, there's pros and cons to these things. If you are okay with being in one location, start a physical business and don't even think twice about it. If you want to move, it's not the best idea. So choose the type of business that you want to start with intention. And number 6 is not expanding soon enough. Now, expanding and scaling is something that is easier said than done, but I had no knowledge of this when I was 18. I had no understanding of how to scale, of how to get out of the apartment I was in with my vintage clothing business. How do I go and get a warehouse? How do I get a place to move my life to, right? How do you get the money to do it? And the thing is, I was so scared at that time to take this risk again because I was worried about the monthly. I knew it would cost me at minimum $1,000 a month to go and get a storage unit or whatever to hold inventory in. But the thing is the second I did that, all of a sudden, I mean, when I was first started, I was making on a really good month like $9,000 to $10,000 in revenue, and I was working my ass off because I constantly need to be changing the amount of inventory I had. I constantly had to be fluctuating things. I constantly had to be marketing because the inventory I had was not large enough to be able to sell that amount each month. So I had to kill myself in order to sell that much in vintage clothing. It was a lot. And it was a grind, and it was every day. It was 16-hour days every day trying to make that happen. And the second I stopped, then all of a sudden I'm making $800 a month. Now that I've scaled my business and I have a warehouse and I have a lot of room to hold inventory and you can scale that, all of a sudden it's $7,000-$8,000 in a month is pretty easy because the inventory's sitting there, right? So this isn't the best example because it's difficult to explain this in another business, but I'll explain it in the construction also because the scaling is you must grow, and you're going to be very scared. You're going to be very scared to scale because it's always going to be a money thing. You need to put money in to expand, and a lot of people don't want to lose that cushion that they have under them in order to do that, right? But when you're starting out with business, especially if you have the ability to put the money in, you need to expand. Because even with the construction, right, is there's so many tools that I didn't want to buy and so much equipment that I was really scared to buy because that's such an investment. What if I don't get the work? But the thing is you can't do the work in the construction industry without the equipment. You can rent it, sure, but you're just going to be losing money in the long term. You can't even make bids on certain things unless you have the equipment to do it, right? So I was so scared of doing that. I was so scared of getting close to expanding because of the risk. The reward is in the risk in business. And unless you're willing to make moves at the start, you will not grow. And that is why so many businesses fail, is because they are not moving. You cannot stay stagnant in business. You have to be moving one way or another. And the expansion is where that is. The sixth mistake I wish, as a very young 18-year-old entrepreneur, I wish I learnt earlier was not hiring employees soon enough. Delegation, 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 delegation. If there's one thing I've learned through business, delegation is so important. Now, a lot of people will tell you to hire people smarter than you, hire people better than you, all these things. Easier said than done, right? But I think it's less about finding people that are better at your own job than you, right? And it's more about finding people that are better at certain things than you. So in a vintage clothing store, for instance, I don't really need somebody that is amazing at marketing, amazing at taking pictures, amazing at doing listings, because a lot of these things are very mundane activities. You don't really need to be good at anything in order for me to hire you at $20 an hour. But the construction industry, I think, is a much better way to explain it. But the thing is that delegation alone, where somebody can ship orders when I'm not there, or somebody can take pictures while I'm not there, or do measurements while I'm not there, allows you to work on more important things, such as the marketing, such as the SEO, such as the website, such as anything along those lines, all the things behind the scenes. Now you can focus on the more important things, which allows you to make more money. Even if that's sourcing, right? Even if that's me getting better items for somebody else to take pictures of, that is going to improve your sales constantly. If you don't have the time to source properly, then your items, why would anybody buy from you? With the construction industry, I would say it's even more important because I was doing all the sales for myself the first year and I made good money. But then the second year, I hired one salesperson. Just do emails and respond to people. And all of a sudden, I had 5 times the amount of sales. The next year, I hired a salesman, a sales lady to do calls, and kept the same lady doing emails and got a door knocker. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, awesome. I made $100,000 in a season 2. I just made $500,000 in a few months, right? And that is where the differences lie. And the thing is with hiring employees, it also relates to not expanding soon enough because it's a money thing. I don't want to take the risk of hiring somebody else because I can do it myself and I can make all this money. But the thing is if you spend all your time doing sales, then you have a very slim window in when you can schedule the work. So I can do all these things. I can go and schedule. I can go and find every single sale. I can go door knock. I can print out the flyers. That's awesome. You can do it all. The thing is somebody who's been doing sales for the last 20 years is better at sales than you. Oh God, I don't want to give somebody 10% commission. You wouldn't have the sale without them. You could keep doing sales, but you wouldn't have that sale without them. So the thing is, all of a sudden, it's like, well, would I rather be working 7 days a week actually doing the construction work? Or would I rather be sitting here taking calls and then one day I go work? Because this guy's better at sales than I am. This guy's way better at sales than I am, right? He's great at sales. This lady's way better at scheduling than I am. This girl's way better at knocking doors than I am. Why would I do it, right? If I have to spend more time on the work, and you could say, well, you should be delegating the actual work you're doing then. Of course, but easier said than done in a specific industry such as the construction industry, just because the second you walk away from that, then the work suffers. The quality of the work suffers. But it's beyond the point. I did hire more employees. I've hired more employees to do things so the work that we're doing goes by quicker, and then you can fit more in a day. And eventually you get multiple crews going and all these things, and then all of a sudden now it's automated. But hiring employees is something that I think a lot of people are very scared of at the start because once again, it's money coming out of their pocket. If you're not making money, well then, all of a sudden I still have to pay your paycheck, right? I need to guarantee you that work. But if you have a team of people that are hardworking and know what they're doing, hiring employees is only going to help and not harm. And number 7, the last thing I wish my 18-year-old self knew before starting a business is that you are going to fail 1,000 times over. And I know at the start of this video, I said, learn from my mistakes, right? But I think one of the biggest mistakes I had at the start was not realizing that the failures are a good thing. Those are what push you. Those are what make you grow, and those are what improve you because you learn from every mistake and you learn so quick. But you mess one thing up at the start and you're so hard on yourself. I used to get down on myself every day. Oh my God, this video flopped. Oh my God, this website sucks. Oh my God, these pictures are bad. I have to redo this. I have to redo this. I have to redo this. I messed up this job. I did all this. And you're thinking to yourself, this is the end of the world. Every single time something happens, it's the end of the world. You're going to lose money. But every single mistake I've made in business, sure, yes, it costed me monetarily. It's costed me, if I've messed up a commercial job, I've had jobs that have costed me $1,000 out of pocket because I messed something up. I've had jobs that I haven't been paid for because I messed something up. I have jobs that I had to redo for free. I've had complaints, right? But these mistakes that I've made along the way are things that I will never repeat. The thing on top of this that you have to understand is that every failure makes you think differently the next time you go and do something. So not only will you avoid the failure that you already had, but there's a very high likelihood that you are also not going to fail in other ways that are similar to it. You might be scared that you're going to mess up a sales call or you're going to fuck up on a job, but you will. And the quicker you can accept that and the quicker you can take those failures and start to push yourself forward because of them and take them truly as learning experiences, you are going to grow so fast. And I wish as an 18-year-old, I wasn't so scared of looking stupid and embarrassing myself because now, as a 21-year-old, not that long later, but feels like it's been a very long time since then, every mistake I've made has turned me into the person I am today. And without those mistakes, I would never be in the position I am today because every fuck up pushes you forward. And without those little nudges, that little inch forward each time, you're not going to get anywhere. So every time you fuck up, every time you have a mess up, understand that that is the most important thing that can happen to you each day. Those failures, every failure, big or small, is a learning experience and something that is going to push you farther than other people. And once again, one of the things I said about going all in at the start is that you can fuck up for 4 years straight as an 18-year-old and still come out on the other side ahead of every single person, every single peer you've ever had that got a job, joined the trades, went to school. It doesn't matter Because as long as you really don't mess up, you're not in debt. You've lost nothing. And you've only gained experience. And there's a lot of experience that cannot be taught. And the only way to gain that experience is to do it. Anyways, guys, that is 7 things I wish I knew as an 18-year-old before starting my first business. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that there was something you could have taken away from this. Once again, my name is Carter Positano. I am a 21-year-old entrepreneur, and I am just here to be the person that I needed when I got started. So if you took anything away from this video, I would appreciate if you guys could like and subscribe. I'm still in the process of finding out what I want to do with this channel and the direction I want to lead, but for the most part, I just want to be a mentor to people that I needed when I was 18. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.